Sister Jessica and Sister Victoria, two Roman Catholic nuns, are seen in 1952 in Romania at the St. Carta Monastery. Sister Jessica says they are compelled to enter the entrance marked "God ends here." As Sister Victoria is praying, she enters. Sadly, Jessica is attacked by an unknown evil that kills her in the end. Even so, she manages to warn Victoria that this evil requires a vessel in order to escape before she is killed. Sister Victoria offers herself as a sacrifice by hanging out the window in order to save the evil from consuming her. Vatican City doesn't find out about anything that happened here for a while, but ultimately they do when a delivery guy known only as Frenchie shows up at the abbey and discovers Sister Victoria's rotting body hanging. Priest Father Burke is therefore asked by Vatican officials to look into the monastery and ascertain whether the premises are still sacred for his purpose. Additionally, the Vatican suggests that he travel with Sister Irene, a young novitiate from London, as she is said to be acquainted with the area. Nevertheless, she asserts that she has never visited Romania when Father Burke meets with her later. Burke yet chooses to move forward with her at his side because he thinks the Vatican has a reason for every choice it makes. The two then proceed to Burton, where they meet Frenchie and request that he drive them to the abbey. He nods grudgingly. Once there, he leads them inside the icebox where he accidentally discovered Victoria's body and placed it. Frenchie is astonished to enter and discover the body sitting up, as he had left it lying down. Father Burke doesn't seem too bothered about this, though, and he keeps looking over her body. Eventually, he discovers a key still in her hand, which he takes for himself before the three bury her properly. After entering the abbey, they quickly run across the abbess, who queries their purpose for being there. Father says they have come on behalf of Rome to find out about the death that occurred recently in her coven and to get confirmation from the church over the safety and well-being of the abbey, for which he must first have a conversation with the sisters. The abbess informs him that he would have to wait until tomorrow since the sisters are going to have vespers, which is followed by a long period of stillness that finishes in the middle of the morning. Burke advises Frenchie to go home because they probably won't need him to pick them up for a few days, forcing him and Irene to spend the night in the Covenant's hostel. However, on his journey back that evening, Frenchie encounters a terrifying scene as, through the woods, he witnesses a nun in the distance dragging a noose. After that, he pursues her, which causes the demon nun to unexpectedly attack him. Fortunately, the attack is limited in its scope, allowing him to go free. Even though no two of the visions were exactly the same, Irene says they all left her with the same realization in the end. Mary points the way. Meanwhile, back at the monastery, Burke and Irene talk about a string of alleged childhood visions over dinner. Burke, who confesses that during the war, while he was stationed in France, had some similar recollections evoked by her recall of her history. He was instructed to look into Daniel, a youngster who saw visions. Burke evaluated the youngster and determined that Daniel was possessed. Hence, an exorcism was initiated. Unfortunately, Daniel suffered serious injuries during the exorcism and passed away a few days later as a result, leaving Burke burdened with remorse even after the evil was purportedly driven out. Later that evening, when the two are now asleep, Burke is startled awake by the radio in the lodge suddenly starting to play music on its own. Burke then starts hearing and seeing footsteps all over the lodge, and suddenly he sees the invisible person racing outside. After that, he pursues them and learns that Justice Burke has caught up to Daniel instead of them. A snake that has started to crawl back towards the priest and into an open grave is vomited up by him. Burke stumbles into something underground and gets stuck there. Fortunately for him, though, there is a bell affixed to his casket that protrudes above the ground. They had previously mentioned this as a frequent procedure during the epidemic, when individuals were afraid of being hidden alive. In order to get Sister Irene's attention, he starts ringing the bell repeatedly. She is temporarily confused, though, when several other bells start ringing while she searches the graveyard for him. But she's quickly able to locate the true source of the noise and assist in freeing Father Burke, who, thinking the books might be useful, finds and gathers a few within the grave. When Paul and Irene return to the abbey the next day, only Sister Irene is allowed inside. Burke gives her the key he had discovered earlier, and she goes inside while he remains outside and starts perusing the books. He discovers information on a certain demon known as Valak, the Defiler, the Profane, and the Marquis of Snakes. Within, Irene finds a nun who is praying in the chapel, and she approaches her to try and get her attention. Sister Ona, a different nun, tugs her away instead and tells her that they cannot stop praying. Then Sister Ona leads Irene to a separate room so she can ask any questions as the sisters alternate in their prayer to keep a continuous watch. Starting from the history of the abbey, Ona tells us that it was constructed during the Dark Ages by the Duke of St. Carta, having composed innumerable books on witchcraft and incantations to summon the powers of hell. He was eventually able to create a gateway that would allow an unimaginable evil to infiltrate their reality. Fortunately, though, the church attacked the castle in time to shut the gateway with an antiquated relic that contained Jesus Christ's blood and slay the Duke. After that, the nuns began their never-ending prayer to keep the evil at bay when the church took ownership of the castle. This worked for several centuries, until the war's bombs rocked the abbey and the evil devised a new method to start the game. Sister Abigail suddenly interrupts the two's talk, telling Irene that she has to go. Ona, however, says she have to spend the night because the gates have already closed. Returning to Father Burke, the abbess once more greets him as he looks for a different entrance to the abbey. Then he queries Sister Victoria about the key he discovered in her palm, but instead of responding to his query, she tells him that Sister Irene has vanished and it is too late. Burke tries to check on her by lowering her veil before her body goes suddenly. This just causes her demonic body to grab hold of his arm, which he thankfully manages to resist. As a result, her arm is severed from her body before she simply disappears. Meanwhile, a startling nightmare abruptly wakes Sister Irene from her sleep. Before everything becomes any scarier, she notices a nun sitting across the room. Suddenly, as she emerges briefly behind Irene and suddenly launches herself out the window, she appears to be the late Sister Victoria. That's when Irene starts to hear Sister Victoria's voice beckoning to her. She then pursues it down the corridor and through the door that Sister Jessica had previously entered. The evil creature Valak then materializes behind Irene in its nun form and starts to follow her slowly. However, with some assistance from Sister Rona, who tells her that they have to meet at the chapel because only prayer will get them through the night, she is eventually able to flee. Father Burke is also abruptly attacked by Valak in another place. Fortunately, though, Frenchie, who had started to fear that Burke and Irene might be in danger, is able to provide him with some assistance. He has now returned and is using a shotgun to defeat the demon in this form. But when Sister Irene returns to the chapel, Sister Abigail is there praying instead of Sister Ona, as the other nuns enter the church and join Irene in prayer. It is seen that she has passed away, her corpse seen laying on the floor next to Abigail. But this praying turns out to be rather challenging since the demon keeps interrupting them, first from across the room and then by incising a pentagram on Irene's back. However, Burke and Frenchie are eventually able to reach the chapel as well. Irene opens the door and lets them in. Oddly enough, the other nuns have all disappeared by the time she looks back at them. And she soon finds that, since this abbey has been publicly shown to be no longer holy, none of them were real at all, only visions. Now, the three start to understand that Sister Victoria's earlier, seemingly suicided deed was actually a sacrifice made to keep the evil from finding a human host and invading the world. Sister Irene won't go away until they've locked the gateway once more and contained the evil, even after they've finished their inquiry. The three then decide to find the relic holding the blood of Jesus Christ, which Irene thinks might be somewhere in the tunnels leading to the catacombs where the gateway is situated. However, before they proceed, Irene tells Father Burke that she is ready to give her life to God and would like to take her vows since she has come to the conclusion that her visions are a miracle. They take care of things and proceed with their next plan of action, which is to locate their next aim as the relic, which Irene thinks might be someplace in the tunnels leading to the tombs where the gateway is situated. It contains the blood of Jesus Christ, but before they do that, Irene lets Father Burke know that she wants to take her vows. She is prepared to give her life to God because she has now concluded that her visions are a miracle. After taking care of that, they carry out their original plan to search the entire tunnel system. From this, Father Burke deduces the significance of Irene's visions of Mary points the way. Irene uses the key to unlock the door and take out the relic when she finds a statue of Mary that is actually pointing them in the direction of the door where the relic is hidden. But shortly after taking possession of the Christ's blood, Valak attacks the three again and succeeds in forcing them to separate. This gives the demon the chance to take control of Irene. They go out to murder Frenchie now that they have a human host. However, they unintentionally allow him to spill some of Christ's blood on his hand as they come a bit too close to him. He then forces Valak to leave Irene's body by smearing a cross across their faces. As a result of his efforts, Frenchie is then rendered unconscious right away. Father Burke is left to cope with the demonic Daniel spitting up snakes while Irene is flung flying across the room. He eventually gets bitten in the eye by one of the snakes. It seems that no one is available to assist Irene as Valak approaches her slowly and starts strangling her underwater until she loses consciousness, or so they believe. After rising to the surface once more, Irene spits the blood of Christ into Valak's face, which causes the demon to return to hell and seals the gateway. But Irene still looks like she's dying of suffocation. Frenchie rushes over and attempts mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on her, which is successful. Doctor properly thank him for sparing her life. Irene then inquires about his real name. It turns out to be Morris. He says, it seems that Valak has finally been vanquished, and the three may start returning home. But we witness an inverted cross beginning to emerge inside Morris's neck as they are about to leave. Then, in Wakefield, Massachusetts, 20 years later, this takes place at a seminar, and Anne Lauren Warren, two investigators into the paranormal, talk about their experience with Morris. It is revealed that, during their previous combat, Morris had been possessed by Valak. The Warrens' first though not their last interview with Valak took place during this seminar sequence, which was filmed for the first time in the first Conjuring movie, and so that was the Nuns summarized for us. To ensure you never miss any updates on new videos, kindly click the bell icon and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.